all join, if you could go to the chat, you should be able to find the chat option on the toolbar, on the Zoom toolbar, and just let us know from where you're tuning in from. Make sure you select all panelists and attendees when you put something into chat. That way everybody can see your post. So Keith, welcome from London. We've got, oh, it's all running through fast. Cairo, London. Vinay from Mumbai, Bangalore, Dubai, Atlanta, welcome. Istanbul, welcome. Netherlands, Buenos Aires, Singapore. Make sure you select all panelists and attendees when you post into chat so everybody can see. Stuttgart, Bernd, welcome. Welcome from Brazil, Slovenia, London again, Saudi Arabia. My name is Alex Brown. I'm actually based in the UK in Cornwall, the southwest tip of England. Welcome. Gökhan from Istanbul. One of the really cool things about these courses from Emeritus is the broad diversity geographically of participants. It's absolutely fantastic. Carlos, welcome from Brazil. Theodosia, I think, based in London. Oh, but currently in Greece. Excellent. Ismit, welcome, and welcome. Yes, lots of people. Nelson from Singapore, Portugal. Asaf from Tel Aviv, welcome. I see more and more people are joining. As we continue, just for maybe one more minute and then I'll get going. Peter from Nigeria, Adayo from, let's have a look. Akram from Egypt, Fabio from Brazil. Select all panelists and attendees would be great. Christina from Venezuela, and things are slowing down, so I'm guessing we have a quorum of attendees, which is fantastic. So let me lower my chat. Now, what I would say is I'm joined today by Anthony from Program Support, who will help answer any questions that you have from a logistical standpoint and a technology standpoint for this course. So be aware of that. So thank you, Anthony, for supporting this webinar. That's very, very good of you. Anthony is based in Mumbai. So we have program support for these courses is based in Mumbai. Obviously, you know, Emeritus is sort of has offices around the world. You're taking a Columbia Business School course. Obviously that's from New York City, and so on and so forth. Anyway, here's some logistics for this particular webinar and for webinars in general that we will offer through this course. Your mic is muted. I don't really use the raise hand feature. If you need to use that, hopefully Anthony from Program Support can deal with whatever that concern is. Use the Q&A feature for specific questions that you make sure you don't want to get lost. And you can also use the chat, as you have done now, to sort of just chat with each other, share thoughts and ideas, and so on and so forth. But hopefully that helps you sort of learn or in terms of how we manage these webinars. This webinar is 60 minutes. Some of your webinars for the course will be 90 minutes, some 60 minutes. It should be outlined ahead of the particular webinars, the particular format and the length of that webinar. So you should know this is 60 minutes. So we should be over, hopefully now, well, in about 55 minutes or so. The purpose of today is just to welcome you to the course, a little bit about us, i.e. the Emeritus and the Emeritus team, and about you. And what I would say, having already read, you know, the discussion thread where you introduce yourself, that we have a really strong group of students in this course, which is very, very typical. And hopefully, as part of participating in this course, you all learn from each other, right? So I think that helps differentiate this course particularly from some other courses offered in this format. So I'll give a program overview, some information about grading and assignments, support. I will do a live demonstration of the learning platform, the Canvas learning platform, some recommendations, and then Q&A. And it's quite difficult for me to keep up with any questions as we go through the webinar. So if I don't answer your questions directly, if you could hold them to the end, and I will answer any lingering questions at that point. So hopefully that is clear. Okay, about us, very good. This is Emeritus. Emeritus sort of working with Columbia Business School, its executive education program, to provide this particular course to you. So you're getting a course from Emeritus and Columbia Business School in cooperation, as it were. The faculty for this course is Professor David Rogers. This is why you're taking this course, to be perfectly frank. He is world-renowned in this area of expertise. He's published 2 books. You can see them noted on the left of the screen. The Network is Your Customer, outstanding. And this is sort of what David Rogers is really renowned for, is really understanding the new dynamic of how customers are all connected together and networked, and how that changes the dynamic between the business and the customer. So you have the Network as Your Customer and the Digital Transformation Playbook, which a lot of the cases and the examples and so on and so forth are drawn for this particular course. So that's his second book. And my understanding is he's currently working on a third book. So he's a faculty of Columbia Business School, globally recognized leader, known for his, like I say, his pioneering model of customer networks. He's been a keynote speaker at conferences all around the world. He's done consulting for big brands all around the world, and he's appeared on all the sort of big news media and stuff. And you will be exposed to Professor Rogers in two ways. One, the bulk of the content that I'll show you a little bit later are videos in the modules, videos undertaken by Professor Rogers. And he has a very eloquent sort of way of, 2 or 3 minute soundbite videos explaining concepts. I think it works very well. And he also participates in a live webinar to answer your particular questions directly. So how this course is run, so Professor Rogers is our faculty, but how it's run is Kalina and I will be your course leaders, and you will be have been put into either section A, and that's Kalina's section. She's based out of Mexico, or section B, and that's my section, and I'm based, as I say, in the UK. And we try to split the sections up to respect sort of time zones and so forth. So the bulk of students in my section, for instance, will be from Europe and parts of Asia and so forth. We are then supported by our program support team, who are fantastic, and Anthony, who is on this call. His name is not on this list. I don't know why, but you see a number of the support team listed below, but they are fantastic. They deal with all the logistics and programming and so forth, and putting everything together. A little bit about myself. I have actually taught this subject matter more specifically on the marketing side, but I've also sort of quite broadly discussed digital strategy as it relates to marketing, new product development, and those sorts of things. I've been doing this for lots and lots of years, actually. I first started teaching this subject matter in 1997. So that sort of predates Google and social media platforms and various other things. And I've seen the evolution of stuff, which I think is really interesting. Hopefully it's interesting anyway. And it sort of has allowed me to see a lot of digital transformation as businesses have had to adapt and adjust to the evolving digital technologies. So it's been a fascinating journey, and I'm still thoroughly enjoying it. And I've been a course leader for Emeritus now for about 1.5 years, and I'm a course leader for this course and a digital marketing strategies course, which is also taught by Professor Rogers. Over the years, I've led several new product launches in a variety of spaces, most notably in the academic admissions space, working at the Wharton School, the University of Pennsylvania. I co-founded a few e-commerce startups. That was actually in the late 1990s, before the dot-com bubble burst. That was an interesting phase in my career. And I've pioneered the use of digital marketing in academic admissions, as I mentioned, at the Wharton School, as well as actually in the animal welfare domains. And I see through some of your introductory posts on our discussion board that some of you, others are also interested in the animal welfare domains. That's fantastic. This is my LinkedIn profile, so feel free to connect with me if you choose to do so. Those of you that are in section A, Kalina is your course leader, and she has an absolutely fantastic resume. So I feel a little bit sorry, I suppose, for some of you in section B not to be exposed to Kalina so much, but she's a strategy consultant, so she's now sort of plowing that path more sort of independently and so forth, but has done some really interesting things in the past. Head of strategy at Walmart Mexico, and you imagine Walmart has really straddled digital transformation, going from a brick and mortar retail store to a fully omni-channel integrated approach to grocery, big box retail and so forth. So Walmart's a very interesting case study, and Uber is probably one of the brands we talk most of in a course like this. So Kalina is GM at Uber Mexico. So and is also a startup advisor. So she's done some wonderful things. So you'll either have a course leader. If you're in section A, it'll be Kalina. If you're in section B, it will be me. And what are we there for? We're there to answer your questions on the content of the course, to help with some of the grading, to facilitate some additional webinars, and be your point person and your tutor and various other things, and so forth, as you go through the rest of this course. A little bit about you. So you are from always lots of different parts of the world. Again, a great reason for taking these courses, I think, is the quality of students that take these courses, and the diversity of students. So when you marry that quality and diversity, you get potentially a really rich learning environment, right? So you see the top countries represented. It's always interesting in each of these courses how that top country sort of differs sometimes. So we actually have a lot of students on this course from Turkey, and I know that because they're in section B, and a lot of them in the petrochemical industry, actually. So that's obviously very interesting. United States, Brazil, India, Singapore, United Kingdom, where I am, Germany, Nigeria, Thailand. So these are the countries most represented, but obviously you can see 40% is not represented in this list. So lots of different countries represented in about, we're talking about 150 students, I think. Might be a little bit more than that, but it's usually around that number. Work experience is absolutely fantastic. And the diversity of work experience in terms of length and so forth is really interesting too, because what you have is, folks with 25, 29 years of experience. So I would actually fit into that bucket, 11%. It's fascinating what we've witnessed over those 25, 29 years or 30, 34 years in terms of the evolution of the impact of digital technologies. So you can imagine we started work when computers were really not used much at all, quite frankly, and the transition to today. And then you have folks that are 0 to 4 years of experience. These are mobile first generations. They're only used to the internet. They've never not known the internet. They've never not known looking at the internet through a device, and so on and so forth. So that sort of diversity, I think, of perspective really creates some interesting engagement. And then obviously there's a lot of levels of sets of work experience in between. And then the different industries. So banking and financial services are well represented in this cohort. Oftentimes consulting is the top represented here, but it's, well, actually, I guess they're all about equal, 9%, 9%, 9%, 9%. IT services, healthcare, oil and gas and energy is well represented. Then obviously 56% is others. That, you know, that might be automotive, might be retail, lots of other sectors. But I don't think I can emphasize enough the quality there across those metrics. And if you go to the discussion thread, and I'll show you these a little bit later when I do the demo, if you go to the discussion thread, you will see as people introducing themselves, the diversity and the quality of the experiences that are being brought to the table for this particular course. So a little bit about the program overview, what you'll be actually learning, hopefully. It's 13 modules, and you know, I could go through all these briefly, but I'm not going to go through each one individually. But module 1, which began today, so you should have received an email today in your inbox. I know I did, so the emails did work. Sort of gives you access to module 1. Where we talk about the 5 domains of digital transformation. And I'll talk about them individually in a minute because it happens to be on the next slide. Then module 2 and module 3, we then talk about that first domain of digital transformation, which is customers. Then module 4 talks about the second, which is competition. So each of the modules then moves us along across those 5 modules of digital transformation. And then module 11, we look at mastering digital business models. Module 12, surviving disruption. So we're looking at disruption more broadly after examining the 5 domains of digital transformation. And then finally look at leadership and sort of organizational issues. So hopefully that makes sense. You don't need to know all the content right now. What's most important to you at this point is simply that you should have access to module 1. And this is a sort of framework that Professor Rogers has developed for his approach to digital strategies for business. So he looks at 5 areas of transformation. And you know, the premise is that each business, each industry has to evaluate each of these 5 areas as it navigates digital transformation. So you have customers and making sure that you're a customer centered, customer centric, not simply just customer focused, and not simply just using, you know, target marketing and various other, you know, war type words to find and beat up your customers. It's no longer a command and control brand to customer type scenario, right? Truly, businesses that will survive and survive in the long run think of customers first and then design their businesses around their customers, right? And if they don't do that, their competition will do that. Learning how to be truly customer centric in an environment where customers are connected and networked together. And a simple example of this is, you know, now as you're a customer, when you're on that digital pathway to purchase, a term we like to use, before you make a purchase now, oftentimes you will go to reviews, and these are other customer reviews. So we're looking at insights from other customers before we make a purchase, right? So if you can imagine, prior to the evolution of digital technologies, we were much more limited in getting access to other customers' insights before we made a purchase. So that's customers. Competition is changing. The makeup of competition. In the old world, competition used to be simply a zero-sum game. You win customers, your competitor loses customers. You win contracts, your competitors lose. Now we're looking at potentially sort of ecosystems and how they work together, co-opetition, and various other issues, asymmetric competition, where your competitor, you know, I do a case study on IKEA in the digital marketing strategy course, and I always suggest, you know, who is IKEA's biggest competitor? And maybe I'll just throw that out into chat. IKEA is a furniture brand that many of you will know. Who would you consider to be IKEA's biggest threat from a competitive standpoint in this sort of new digital era? Anyone, just throw it into chat. What brand would you consider to be IKEA's biggest threat? IKEA being a furniture brand that many of you may be aware of. Mohammed suggests Walmart, as does Dina, Amazon, eBay, Amazon Home24, eBay, Amazon Perfect. So without continuing with this too much, and very good for selecting all panelists and attendees, that would be my answer, is Amazon, right? An asymmetric competitor. Amazon's like business model isn't just furniture, right? But they're starting to move into the furniture marketplace. So what Amazon can do very well is delivery, and that's where IKEA is still struggling and straining a little bit, right? So that would be an example of an asymmetric competitor. We know that data is becoming a strategic asset. And how do companies use data now more as a strategic asset? We hear the terms big data and various other things. So we'll address those in terms of digital transformation in this course. Innovation and how innovation is changing, using A/B testing and various other ways for sort of rapid innovation. And you hear the term, you know, fail fast. Well, maybe we should talk about fail smart, and learning and adapting and innovating. And then finally, the value and how our value propositions may be changing and adapting our value propositions because of the impacts of digital transformation and so forth. And as you see, this model is sort of circular. That then goes back to customers. And truly, what is it that customers are seeking? And that has to be first and foremost. And then to do all this effectively, we have to have digital strategy leaders. We have to have an organizational culture that allows for effective digital strategy implementation and so forth. So these are the premise and the sort of the high level of what you'll be learning in this course and what you're introduced to in the first module that you've accessed, hopefully, from this morning. Okay, so let me try to move the slide on. So these are Professor Rogers' textbooks. You don't have to buy them. I think if you do, they probably will provide some added color, some additional case studies and so forth. But the content that you need from these textbooks is available in the modules that we provide you. Right. So again, the Professor Rogers' short video modules and short video content is absolutely fantastic. But nevertheless, some people like to have the full flavor, and the full flavor mostly will be the network as your customer. I mean, sorry, the digital transformation playbook would be the one if you only wanted to get one of these at this point. But again, they're not required. The content that is required that you need is on the Canvas platform. Okay, so what's the expectation? You should be gaining sort of practical applications of frameworks that you learn from the modules, and hopefully you can apply them to your own business or client businesses or industries, and apply them as you're going through the course, right? Be innovative, and this is more regarding your homeworks. Be innovative, creative, challenging, but also and disruptive, but also be realistic. So if you have a business idea that you know, that you're addressing in your homework, and it's $1 billion idea and you're a small business, that's probably not particularly realistic. So make sure your homeworks and responses are grounded in realism also. Support your cases and your homeworks with facts and figures. Use references. So if you cite something, let's say from a web address, make sure that web address is included in your homeworks. That would be good. No plagiarism. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the good homeworks, the homeworks that get maximum points, is supported by examples. You don't just get stuff right, but you support what you've gotten right by real examples. Use the templates given to create your own doc. And that, again, don't worry about some of this stuff right now. I'll go through the Canvas platform, and if it still doesn't make perfect sense, then ask me some additional questions. Follow the rubric. What's really cool about this course is not only do we give you homework assignments, which of course everybody loves, but we tell you how we grade it and what level of stuff we're looking for to get the grade. So I think that's really cool, actually. The rubrics are very good, and you have access to those rubrics. Hopefully that you then improve with feedback, but you know, that's in any learning environment. Interact, network with peers, share resources. So all that would go on then on the discussion boards. So I'll show you those in a minute. Your assignments are graded weekly. You need to get 50% of the points on offer. So let's go to that. So very quickly, obviously, plagiarism and integrity is important. Each student is accountable for your own work, and so on and so forth. Plagiarism is very rare, but it has happened. And it's actually happened in one of the courses that I taught for Emeritus, probably about 6 months ago, 8 months ago now. And it occurred where people working in the same organization were sharing stuff and submitting it, and it was the same work, and it shouldn't have been the same work, right? But we identified it, and then we follow up, and this is a problem for students. So just make sure that you're, yeah, we all should be honest, right? So anyway, we should have an understanding of plagiarism and make sure your work is represented as your work. That doesn't mean to say you shouldn't share ideas, you shouldn't collaborate on thinking about stuff if that's what you choose to do, but your final piece of work should be your final piece of work, then with citations where appropriate for resources that you might have used. Because it will be the case sometimes that a number of you use citing the same resource, which means some of the content in your work might sound similar, but if you're citing the same resource, then that would be perfectly fine. This is a little bit about how they're grading the points sort of spread out, right? So what you'll see, and I'll just go over the beginning bit. So, and this is important because you now have basically 2 weeks to complete week 1, which is nice, right? We've got a bit of a holiday break. So you've got a bit of time to get your sort of feet wet and to get started. So in week 0, you should have introduced yourself, and you could still go back and do that. And please do that if you haven't done that. And that gets you 10 points. That gets you on the way. It's a very easy way to start, to figure out how the discussion boards work, and so on and so forth. So introduce yourself. And then in week 1, which is the week we've just started, and you have 2 weeks to complete because of the holiday break that we're having, you have a discussion, the 5 domains of digital transformation. So hopefully you can complete that within your section. And then we also have the digital SWOT of an industry. And I'll show you again, I'll look at that homework here in a minute when I give a quick view of what Canvas looks like. But I think then once you've navigated week 1, and you have 2 weeks to do it, if you do that successfully, it really gets you going and hopefully makes you feel comfortable with where you are. So I see there are some questions coming up into chat. Again, I'm going to continue to keep going, and then if those questions aren't answered, please wait for me at the end and I will address them, or Anthony from program support will address them. So I do appreciate that and your patience. So anyway, here's overall how the points are spread. You'll see some assignments have larger number of points, we have a couple of group assignments, and we'll talk a little bit more about how you get put in groups, or you can self-select into groups a little bit later into the course. We have one feedback, sort of peer feedback assignment. You see that's in assignment 2, it's worth 175 points and so forth. So a little bit there about the different point spread and so on and so forth. Okay. So for individual assignments, you basically have a week to complete, 7 days. And again, for week 1, you actually have 14 days because it's a 2-week period. So just treat it as a 2-week period, not just, well, you have to get it all done before the holiday break and then after the holiday. You've got 2 weeks to do it whenever you choose to do it. That's fine. Written feedback will be provided on assignments 1, 8, and 12. If you submit those assignments late, which you can do to get your points, but you won't then get necessarily receive the feedback. For group assignments, you have 2 weeks to complete because there's obviously some logistical aspects of completing group assignments that are a bit more complicated. If you don't complete those on time, again, you'd still get the points, but you would lose the opportunity necessary to get feedback because we're sort of moving on to the next sort of thing in the course. So hopefully that makes sense. And if you're really good at your assignments, and again, when I go to the rubric, when I demonstrate the Canvas platform, I sort of, hopefully it'll help you understand what really good means. But the top sort of 10, 15% of those completing the assignments on time in terms of quality will get an exemplary assignment badge, sort of acknowledging that great work. And quite frankly, the quality of work is generally quite high, which is fantastic. But it also sort of is symptomatic of the quality of students that take this particular course. But the exemplary assignment badge comes from assignments 1, for assignments 1. So you've got a shot right from the get-go, and we'll look at that assignment in a minute. Assignment 8 and assignment 12. So towards the very end. Okay, so switching gears, a little bit about support. Okay, when I go to the Canvas platform, which is not too long now, you will have the option to request support either of myself or Kalina, depending on who your course leader is. And you select that through the support tab. And again, think of us as your tutor, guide, coach in this learning journey. Or you have questions of a technical, operational, or administrative nature. And those questions go to our program support folks. Anthony, whom is on this, answering some of the questions in chat, is one of those folks. And I'll show you how to differentiate and send those questions. Frankly, if you send me a question over Canvas through email or whatever it is, that's perfectly fine. I'll answer it. The advantage of doing it this way is there's a tracking system. If someone's away, we can tell the question's not been answered. We can get it answered. It also helps us in terms of building frequently answered questions type documents when we're seeing a flood of questions that are similar, and so on and so forth, right? So that's why we use this type of system. But if you want to reach out to me quickly for some sort of content issue, you're not quite sure what's the difference between the access and the engage strategy when we talk about customers, and you want to be clear on that, and you ping me, I'll answer it. I'm not going to say, please go back and ask it in the right medium, but nevertheless, it helps us if you do use this particular methodology, and I'll go through an example of that in a minute. In fact, I'm going to go through an example of that now. So I'm going to switch to here. So can you just go into chat and tell me that you can see my web browser? I just want to make sure that that is the case. Yes, very good. Awesome. All right, so I am now on the Canvas platform. So when you log into Canvas, this is what you should be seeing. And I'm looking at the student view. The nice thing is I can see your particular view. So on the right-hand side is like a to-do list, sort of reminder of things that you should be doing. In the middle, you'll see recent announcements. So reminder for the introductory webinar today. So that was sent out maybe a couple of hours before this. That's fantastic. and the welcome to week 1 digital strategies for business. As I mentioned, that you should have gotten that this morning to give you access to module 1. If you scroll down, this is a great video sort of introducing the course by Professor Rogers. If you haven't already seen it, it's quite good. A few other things. What's really good down here, you've got the key dates. Start dates December 16th, so you've been at it a week, sort of setting yourself up, hopefully. We have a break week between December 25 and January 1, so the takes us to the end date March 9. But again, what it means is week 1 module, you have 2 working weeks to, or you've got 2 calendar weeks to complete week 1. So that's the home screen. The modules screen is probably where I spend most of my time. So you want to click on modules. Hopefully that works. There we go. Hopefully this will start looking familiar to you. Lots of logistical stuff at the beginning. That's fine. You can scroll down, course agreement, pre-course survey, all that kind of stuff. Test your understanding of plagiarism, you know, some stuff to get started. That's all very good. Pre-read how cities score. So this is a nice way to start thinking about digital strategies, not necessarily for business, but for Boston, right? The city. But a great article, I think, from The Economist, and it's sort of some really good discussion actually from you guys in response to this article. So well done for those who have already participated, and there's still time to do that. But this is sort of, again, a taster to get your feet wet for what this course is really all about. So that's your pre-read, the Economist article, and there's a short video from Professor Rogers about that. So again, discussions that sort of week 0, introduce yourself. So if you're in my section, you would have just seen this link. You shouldn't see both. I only see both, I guess, because I am a course leader. So hopefully, if you haven't already, make sure that you have introduced yourself to your section mates, and that would be very good. So this morning, you should have had access or given an email that gives you access to week 1. We release modules on a week-to-week basis. Sometimes people say, well, what can't you release it all at once? We want to keep you on track and keep everybody at the same pace, rather than you get some people that just go through everything immediately and others that lag behind, and then you don't have that cohesive sort of learning experience that you can have when hopefully people sort of follow the timeline that we want them to do. So that's why things are released on a week-to-week basis. So this is very typical of each week. You'll get a set of instructions, and then you'll get a set of videos, and I suggest that's the first thing you should do, is watch the videos. So you just watch one video, then click next to the next video, click next to the next video. You've probably got 45 minutes to an hour's worth of video content, maybe less than that. I never really checked. But again, this morning, getting ready for this webinar, I went through again these videos for week 1. And quite honestly, they're really, really very, very, very good. But sets things up for the course. So hopefully you do that. And then you'll see your assignment for week 1. So let's go have a quick look at that assignment. And again, you'll have 2 weeks to complete, even though you should be completing it in you know, typically it would have just been a week. Professor Rogers will give you a quick introduction on what he's expecting from this assignment through a short video. So you can watch another video. It's only a couple of minutes. So the task in this assignment is assess the state of your industry or another industry in adapting its strategies to the digital era. If you don't want to use the industry in which you work or are familiar with, you can pick retail, healthcare, automotive, banking, and financial services if you choose. If you want to just pick an entirely different industry, just note at the top of your homework that you've chosen to do that, just so that when it's graded, we understand that. So basically a SWOT analysis, hopefully You're familiar with the term SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses. That's internal to the industry and individual organizations in the industry. Opportunities and threats are external. What are the opportunities out there for the industry? What are the threats out there to the industry, right? So again, in the furniture industry, the threat might be something like Amazon coming in and sort of reinventing how things are promoted and whatever, right? So anyway, so you get all that. You would click on the template to complete your assignment. So the template will have questions 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a text box. You put your content in the text box, copy and paste it from wherever or whatever you choose to do. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we have a rubric that tells you how you get your points. And I would read these rubrics prior to doing your homeworks. So each question, identified strengths at the top, that's worth 13 points, right? To get the 13 points for that, you provide a detailed description of the strengths of the chosen industry in adapting its strategy to the digital era, right? And hopefully you get those, you know, correct and understandable and they make sense. And you back it up with relevant examples. That's what differentiates you from 7 points to 13 points, is backing it up with examples. And you'll see that in all the rubrics for each of the individual, each of the assignments, is as long as you can back it up, you'll get the points, right? So you get no points if you didn't provide a description of the strengths. You get half the points if you did provide the description of the strengths, but you didn't provide the examples, and you get the full points for that section if you did provide the examples. So hopefully the rubric sort of really helps you think through our expectations for that particular assignment, right? So the modules tab is super important. That's where you get your content, your assignments, and it also includes the link off to your discussion thread. So the 5 domains of digital transformation. If you're in my section, you will go to section B, click on that and write your particular post in there, right? For people, you can click on that. You can try to find people. You can click on your name, make sure everything's correct in there. I won't spend much time on that. I love the discussion tab. So there are 2 ways to get to discussions. In the module, you can go directly to the link and put in your content, or and what I do on a daily basis, or however often you interact with you know, the course, I go to the discussion tab. The reason why the discussion tab is cool is the most recent discussion is always bumped to the top, i.e. the most recent post in a discussion bumps that discussion always to the top, so you know where the new content is. And you also see this where it says that there are 36 replies and there are 36 unread replies. So if I was actually looking at this through my view, not a student view, I would see something like on the introduce section B, I would see something like 79 replies, 2 unread replies, and I could click on that and go read the unread replies, get updated and know where I am. Sometimes we get questions on, you know, what's the quality of posts that we need to post in order to get the full credit. And what I would suggest you do is go read the pre-read How Cities Score discussion thread. After you have read the Economist article, if you haven't read it already, and so forth, post there or whatever, but read through it and you'll get very quickly a good sense of the quality of conversation that particular article stimulated. And that's sort of quality of conversation that we're trying to develop, we try to develop through each of the discussion posts, right? So some fantastic responses from folks, and you see it's 1 or 2 paragraphs. There's some thought there. It's not just 1 or 2 sentences. It's not just copied from somewhere else and so forth. And I would argue that this is truly the value of a course like this in terms of what you can really learn from your classmates from all around the world in lots of different industries, facing lots of interesting challenges. that you're all facing together, sharing those ideas and getting involved in the discussions and putting something substantial down rather than, all right, if I type something quick, I can get my 10 points, but put something substantial down. Then go back and reread the discussion thread when you see more content in there to learn from your classmates. So I think the discussions are outstanding. Announcements, so that's where you'll see some the latest announcements and stuff, the stuff that appears at the top of the home page, I guess. You can keep up with your grades here, which is fantastic, hopefully. And sometimes just bear with us in terms of the grading and making sure we got the right time in terms of get the grade. So you make sure you introduce section B. That's by December 23rd. So hopefully by the end of today, if you haven't already done it, and so forth. Again, if you're late, you'll still get the points, but just try to keep up. Keeping up maximizes your learning opportunity from the course, right? There are outside webinars also. So we get experts that sort of really complement the course material of Professor Rogers and keep things current and provide some different perspectives and so forth. This is considered a webinar, but this is your intro webinar. But you'll see week 2, demystifying digital transformation. We've got mobilizing data transformation. We've got how to evolve data, insight, action, absolutely fantastic. Anyway, additional webinars, brilliant. If you can watch them live, fantastic. So there's dates associated with them all. If you can't, just like this, you can view a recording of the webinar. And you get access to the slides after the fact. That will all be posted on this webinars tab. So hopefully by tomorrow, not that you'll want to watch this again, but there should be a live link to the session here and the slides should be posted here. So this always keeps getting updated. So same with office hours. So we have a couple of office hour sessions of which I participate with you. So the office hours week 5, data value templates. You can attend live, fantastic, February 3rd. And if you're not able to attend, the webinar will be archived here in the slides over here. And then finally, support, which is very important, something I've already discussed to some extent. But if you have questions, things aren't working out, or you've got some content questions and so forth, you click on the support tab. So you've got 2 fields to complete. Requesting assistance, click on that field. Help with submissions, extensions, accessing material and everything. So that's more technical and logistical. If you click on that, then you type in your stuff there, then that will go to program support to sort that stuff out. That would be fantastic. Understanding the course content and the assignment requirements. That'll either go to me, section B, to Kalina, section A. Be very aware of that. And we are responsible, obviously, for answering all of those questions. And enrollments, payments, and certificates, you click on that, you type in your message, and it will go to the admissions folks, right? So you've got, again, just very quickly, program support folks, program support folks, course leaders, and admissions folks, right? And I think that's the end of my overview for Canvas. So I'm going to flip back to our PowerPoint, very good, and move on. So we hope that you enjoy this course. The first critical steps, very quickly, log in and get familiar with the learning platform. I think this is really important. And I do also think this is really cool that we have this extended additional week at the beginning of the course for the holidays for you to get familiar. So hopefully the overview of the Canvas platform that I just provided proves helpful, and you are able to get familiar with the learning platform quickly. It's critical to the success of this course that you do that. Create your profile, set the time, city, and location. And if you're having any struggles with this, this is where you reach out to program support and the technical folks, right? Watch the home course orientation, proceed to module 1 that I went through, block off time and watch those videos. Like I say, it's probably only about 45 minutes to an hour to watch those videos. And they're very good videos. They're all hosted by Professor Rogers. And each of the videos typically includes at least 1 or 2 case studies that explains the concepts of which Professor Rogers is addressing at the time. The first module basically looks at each of the 5 domains of digital transformation, clearly delineates them and gives you some really interesting examples to think about them. Interact with classmates and the emeritus team. So join those discussions. I learn a lot just reading the discussions. Sometimes I'll contribute, but I mean, that's what this course is really about. Like Professor Rogers and the webinars provides a really good sort of platform of content, but a lot of good learning just comes from you and your classmates interacting with each other, and so on and so forth. Be proactive, reach out to the emeritus team if you're falling behind, if you're concerned. Don't wait until the end of the course and then tell us you need another week because you haven't started yet. That would be problematic. So if you have some conflicts, travel conflicts, some health conflicts or family issues and so forth, just make sure that we're aware. We're here to help you be successful. And put this stuff into practice. The more you apply the frameworks to lessons, the more you'll learn. Hopefully, again, you can start doing and thinking about this stuff right from the get-go. You will also have access to this Canvas platform and all the content of this course, I believe, for a year from the beginning of this course. So until this time next year, you'll be able to go back, review, look at the webinars again, and so on and so forth. Hopefully that is helpful. You'll also join the Emeritus Alumni Network. So that's people that take any Emeritus course, so you sort of participate in that. That's very good. And we also have a LinkedIn group just for the courses offered through Columbia Business School and Professor Rogers. Hopefully, again, that further helps networking with your classmates and so on and so forth. And I can't continue to overstate the importance of your classmates. Okay, I think that's it. So I'm sure I have missed some questions. I will sit in the chat box, and if there are any questions that you've asked that I haven't been able to answer, or you want to ask some questions now, please post them into chat, and I will try to address those questions. And our friend from program support, Anthony, hopefully is still here, also will be able to address those questions. If you don't have any questions, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for joining the course generally, and for participating and watching this webinar to get you started. I hope it's proven useful and it makes you feel a bit more confident in sort of embarking on this learning journey with us, with this particular course. It's a fantastic course. David Rogers' courses, both of them that I'm involved in, typically get really good ratings. Nothing to do with me being involved in them, but typically do very well. They're very well structured. The content is well tried and tested, and so on and so forth. So hopefully it works out very well for you. Let me, I have a question for Sriram. Would emeritus group students for group assignments? I believe you'll get information on this down the pipe, but you get first option if you want to work with some students, and then we can help you identify additional students for that. So yeah, group assignments start in week 5. We will open the groups for joining in week 2. So that's the logistics of allowing you to self-select into groups if you want, but there are others that don't know others, and we can help those folks also. Again, Ahmed, hopefully that question has now been answered in terms of how they'll be structured. You self-select first, and they'll be comprised 4 or 5 students in a group, or similar to that. Groups are section-wise, so if you're in section B, you'll be with other folks in section B, and that helps with time zones, because like I said, section B is me, it's more Europe, and sort of Asia, and then section A is Kalina, which focuses more on the Americas side of the world. Do I need to make introductions? Yes. Within your particular section, AID, hopefully I pronounced that correct, you still, if you haven't done so already, introduce yourself on that particular discussion thread. So 5 participants per group, exceptions can be made. Thank you, Anthony, for that. Are the chats available after the webinar to be viewed offline? Unfortunately, I don't think the chat is archived itself. Everything else is, right? So the video, and if obviously we talk about what's coming up in chat, that's why I leave time at the end to try to repeat questions and then answer them, so that people that are just watching the recorded version know what we're talking about now. You are part of section B, so you're in my section, so please introduce yourself in that particular thread. But I'm in Europe, but in section A, is that a mistake, or might section B be at capacity? I don't know, Bart, if that is a mistake. I know we have a few more currently in section B, so it could well be at capacity. I don't know that though. Feel free to send me a message through either Canvas or yeah, through Canvas, and I could follow up and make sure that it wasn't a mistake. Is all webinars will be this time? No, Raghavendra. That's not the case. Some of the webinars, typically they're actually an hour or two later, 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. UTC. Just to be aware of that. I'm not quite sure why we chose 12 p.m. for this, but that's what was chosen. Okay, what else? Can our issues be resolved before the set turnaround of 24 hours? I'm not sure what particular issue you're addressing that question, but yeah, as soon as an issue is raised, we try to get it resolved. I think we give ourselves 24 hours just to give ourselves a bit of comfort. But if you're someone like me, I don't work very hard, but I work all the time sort of person, right? So if you have a query on a Sunday and it happens across my computer, and my computer's turned on and I can answer it, I'll answer it on a Sunday, it doesn't matter. So hopefully that answers that question. Any other questions before we close out? We are near to the top of the hour, so we've got 4 more minutes. If I missed a live webinar, is it easy to find the same content completely? Yes, it is. You just go to that webinars tab, AID, and about 24 hours after the webinar is complete, the recording should be available to watch and the slide deck available to view. So that's typically the plan for webinars. It could be sooner than 24 hours, but typically it takes a little bit of time to get that back and uploaded. There is one small part, small UAE participants is that we have restricted, yes, over VoIP. So group assignments require video calls. I suppose it may be a little difficult to sync. Yes, I know we do some stuff with YouTube because of the issues in UAE in terms of viewing webinars. Hopefully the thing doesn't become too onerous for you with group work. Hopefully we have some examples of how we worked through that previously. Who do you know, which section are you in? Well, one thing that you can do, if you select people on the Canvas platform, the only tab that I didn't go to, put in your name, it'll tell you what section you're in. I assume if you also go to the modules tab and you look at the a discussion link, it'll say introduce yourself section B, or introduce yourself section A if you're in section A. You shouldn't see both options, is my point. We will share the section information in week 2. We will make an announcement on the learning platform. So that's from program support. So thank you for that, Anthony. Anyway, let's have a look. Q&A. It looks like a question popped up there also. Make sure that that's addressed. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Razor, for that. Perhaps I was answering an earlier question. Okay, it seems like the questions have died down. If you do have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us again over Canvas. I hope you've enjoyed this webinar. And again, mostly I hope it gives you assurance to really get started and get going in what I think is a really exciting learning journey. Professor Rogers' content is absolutely fabulous, and running these programs is brilliant. You end up meeting some fascinating people and some really smart people doing really interesting things. So best of luck, everybody. And again, feel free to reach out to us if questions arise, and we look forward to working with you over the course of the next couple of months, or whatever it is, 2.5 months or something like that. And I wish you all the very best of luck. And there we go. Bye, everybody.